Surely we can't take all these things seriously when Donald Trump and Robert Kennedy come forward and talk about how APAP, Tylenol, acetaminophen, taking during pregnancy could lead towards a child developing a higher instance of autism, ADHD, right? I mean, it's just silly. There is a lot of memes about it, and it's just a weird argument, and it has no merit. I'm here to explain a potential counter to that logic that may or may not be known by a large majority of individuals, especially in the US, because they're politically charged, right? So if you remove some of the political temperature for a moment and you look at arguments that were brought forward based on studies, then you can see that there might actually be a very strong argument here for the idea that there is a higher instance of autism and ADHD when the mother has taken acetaminophen, Tylenol, APAP during pregnancy. Well, what do I mean by that, right? I mean, we're talking about, does Tylenol cause autism? Well, I mean, that's still in debate at the moment. And the reason it's debate is because the science has been inconclusive in terms of having a strong positive correlation that is proven in court, okay, to put a warning on the label of Tylenol. And what I mean by that is the process looks like this. Typically, the Judicial Panel of Multi-District Litigation, the JPML, establishes that enough people have been harmed that a lawsuit called a mass tort gets consolidated into one place to be heard in front of a judge who specializes in mass torts or specializes in the ability to listen to these mass torts, called a multi-district litigation, an MDL. And in 2022, there is an MDL that was put forward for APAP Tylenol by brilliant lawyers. And we're talking about not frivolous lawsuit lawyers, not people who, are fly-by-night, they're trying to earn a buck, they're not ambulance chasers. These are brilliant, well-respected lawyers. Mark Lanier, Ashley Keller, Michael Watts, the list goes on and on. There's so many all-star lawyers who are on this roster of the steering committee. The steering committee being an appointed committee of individual law firms who help represent the plaintiff bar. Okay? Plaintiff bar would just be the people who were hurt. So now you have this lawsuit, and from 2022 until 2024, it was being heard out by Judge Denise Cote, very good judge, over in New York. Judge Denise Cote did actually dismiss this case. There were some conversations about learned intermediaries that was very interesting, and I'm not going to get into the nuances of the lawsuits themselves or try and pick it apart. I'm not a lawyer, I'm an advocate, okay? And I'm also not a doctor, so I'm not giving you medical advice here. But this is really important to understand, because a learned intermediary, a doctor, an expert, what their job is to say, not to say whether or not there is a correlation or a causation argument. It's more of, would I still tell my patient to take Tylenol when they have symptoms that would need or necessitate some sort of acetaminophen over the counter, and they should do that while pregnant? And that argument kind of came in and out. There were bellwether trials and different things, and it ended up being dismissed in the end, where, unfortunately, it was not thoroughly heard out in court to the extent that the plaintiff bar felt it was right. So now it's currently under appeal in the Second Circuit, and I believe Ashley Keller, again, phenomenal lawyer, he's amazing, is going to be speaking, I think, next week. I'll actually look at the date for that. But this is still an ongoing argument. This is appealed. There are legitimate cases in there with strong science that deserves to be heard out in court. And that science, again, is demonstrating a very material difference in potential autism instances and ADHD as well after the mother has taken acetaminophen during pregnancy. So while the general public is out here saying, well, you know, Tylenol is safe. And a lot of doctors saying it too, right? You're talking about a lot of people are coming forward and saying it's safe to take. I'm not saying it's not safe to take. What I'm saying is there's still an argument that a warning gets put on the label that there is a potential risk that in taking this medication during pregnancy could lead towards a higher instance of developing at birth ADHD and or autism. There are familial factors. There are a lot of other factors that go into autism diagnoses. And again, I'm not trying to place blame. And we're also not talking about how autism is only from Tylenol or APAP, right? Acetaminophen. But the argument is still going. And so there are merits to this discussion that I think need to be heard out. And I believe a lot of people just don't know about it. So hopefully this video, it's a longer form video, but hopefully this actually shares a little bit more insight, keeps everybody a little bit smarter about what's going on and just kind of familiarizes themselves, because it's not saying that this is new science, right? We're talking about, these are studies that were done 3, 5, 10, 15 years ago that show a difference. And you can point to that difference. You could point to point A to point B that looks like it turned up, that the mothers with that over-the-counter medication had a higher instance. The inconclusiveness of the studies is usually part of the background, and this is not uncommon, right? So I do want people to understand that studies that are done need to be replicated many, many times. And sometimes there are factors in certain studies that are debated in court over whether or not they were strong enough to represent what should have happened or what actually might have happened in the real life scenarios. And so this happens with just about every single one of these pharmaceutical cases, where a pharmaceutical company comes forward and says, you're full of baloney. You're not real. This is a bad lawsuit and you're just wasting everybody's time. And the lawyers find out in depositions and in discovery and in certain areas that either this knowledge was known and it was hidden, or this is something that needs to be investigated because it's new information that we just need to alert people about, okay? So you might still be recommended to take Tylenol, and that's up to you and your doctor. I think the important piece here is not to dismiss the potential argument, because it does have some foundation, and you have very, very, very smart people who are arguing it on both sides. And it's something to look out for. This is actually really cool from a nerdy perspective, that this science is still to be determined, or at least determined in court at the moment. All right, love you guys. Stay safe, and hopefully that helped.